Good afternoon. Who would choose to be LGBT and Nigerian? Recent polls indicate that more than 90% of Nigerians support the legal ban of same-sex relations, and that 86% of Nigerians say that the country will be better off without members of the LGBT community. Laws enacted in 2014 make homosexuality a crime, punishable by 10 years imprisonment with 14 years for same-sex marriage and 10 years for participating or facilitating a homosexual gathering. Nigerians truly believe that LGBT is a Western concept and that members of the LGBT community are purposefully and actively choosing to act in this manner, and that their proclivities can be undone by pressure, prayer, violence, imprisonment, or the threat of death. I know of no openly gay persons in Nigeria. Now, contrary to at least one opinion, Nigeria is not a shithole. It is rather an amazing and intriguing country of approximately 200 million people from 300 different ethnic groups, each with its unique language and culture. Christianity and Islam are the dominant religions. And Nigeria has the 5th largest Christian and Muslim population in the world. Nigerian immigrants are the most educated of all immigrants in the US. And Nigerians have come first on the poll for happiest people in the world. Nigeria is also a country with immense natural resources. However, despite incredible crude oil endowment, failed leadership, and ruthless corruption have left the vast majority of Nigerian citizens poor and vulnerable, without access to decent education, employment, security, healthcare, electricity, or clean water. Uncertainty is tangible, and fear is a well-traded commodity. In fact, the creation and propagation of fear is one of the more profitable businesses of people in power, such as the police, educators, politicians, and many religious leaders, in order to exert control and extort resources from everyday citizens. It is here, against this complicated backdrop, that I wish to enter this matter, to explore how I may influence the current narrative and soften the hearts of Nigerians towards the LGBT issue. It is also here that my work gets very uncomfortable. In attempting to give honest voice to the silenced parties in this matter and smashing up against a trifecta of draconian laws, new-sprung intolerance, and a pervasive religious might. I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, by a very Catholic white American mother and an Episcopalian Nigerian father. At age 17, I left Nigeria to attend university here in Boston. And I returned to Nigeria 20 years later when I married my husband, a Nigerian American just like me, who started a business in Lagos. I am an artist who is passionately engaged in creating performance artwork that positively impacts the society that I live in. Now, as Judy said, in 2014, I started a performance art production company called Open Eye, which creates work that builds awareness and challenges the status quo where it limits the potential for Nigeria. We are focused on women's issues, and our production, here word if you haven't seen it, plug right here, is happening next door at the American Repertory Theater. I'm neither an academic nor an intellectual. And I explore this current subject as a storyteller, a witness, a mother, a concerned Nigerian citizen, and a citizen of the world. Who indeed would choose to be LGBT and Nigerian? Now, let's go back to that Nigerian environment where, for the average citizen, uncertainty is tangible and fear a well-traded commodity. An environment lacking in decent education, employment, security, healthcare, electricity, or clean water. As such, and understandably so, Nigerians flock to places of worship, seeking protection, prosperity, and the promise of heaven. Religious leaders promise abundance and preach about an ending world filled with the anguish of hellfire for non-believers, and a living world where demons, witches, and homosexuals run rampant, snatching up hope, health, and righteousness right where our children play. So, though Nigeria is diverse, chaotic, and complex, there is one thing most Nigerians agree on: homosexuality is an abomination and it must be eradicated. And yet, as I explore this topic, there are many Nigerian voices that are muffled and muted. Citizens who are LGBT and live with a portion of their lives shrouded, hidden, and disguised. Citizens who are supportive friends, relatives, and families of LGBT persons. As a teenager in Lagos, I was aware of what it meant to be homosexual. I understood it wasn't ideal. I had heard boys with cousins in British boarding schools use the term homo or fag to belittle other boys. However, no one was looking for homosexuals to burn at the stake. No one felt threatened. No one was even discussing it. In fact, what we all heard our parents whispering about was who in our neighborhood had just embezzled funds or stolen money. Our parents shook their heads and squeezed their faces at the news headlines of corrupt government officials or failed government projects which ultimately caused the misery and death of many Nigerians. There are many. There may have even been some smirking when men they knew took second wives or fathered children outside their marriages. But certainly, homosexuality was not a topic of conversation or concern. So you can imagine my shock when, after 20 years in the US, I returned to impassioned young Nigerian graduates barely able to write a decent application letter, yet freely interpreting verses from the King James Version of the Bible. These young fellow citizens stood sure and convinced about who and whom would enter the kingdom of heaven, and why and who would surely burn in eternal hellfire. The guest list to heaven excluded non-Christians, idol worshippers, those not born again, and unrepentant sinners, including members of the LGBT community whose special sin was tied to the destruction of the city of Gomorrah. Critical thinking had become seriously impaired by a cocktail of young energy and idle, vacuous minds spinning aimlessly in a failed national system of education. It was as if these young Nigerians believed that in the 2,000 plus years of Christian theology, they were the first people to really get the Bible. They parroted phrases that conjured up the devil, absolving themselves of every responsibility. They fearlessly cast and bound imaginary enemies responsible for setbacks they were yet to experience. No weapon fashioned against me shall prosper. Any evil planned for me shall be returned to sender. Any enemies shall burn 1,000 times in a pit of hellfire. It was the same story for young Muslim fundamentalists. It was alarming. I mean, if we now prayed more and read our Bibles more, if we were now holier than before, why was evil so much more prevalent? And what had happened to those fundamental teachings of Christ, sacrifice, selflessness, and treating your fellow human being as yourself? Where was the love thy neighbor, the log in the eye thing, the forgive one another as your Father in heaven forgave you? It appeared that these had been placed on the back burner. And still, ever so present was that fear. I wish to share a few stories with you, stories that helped to form my interest in this project. Several years ago in Lagos, a happening friend of mine arrived at my home. Let me go back. Happening friend of mine arrived at my home for a cup of tea and a catch-up. She arrived big and bright, directly behind her Gucci bag. The tea and conversation was sweet and light until she asked where I had been and why I had not shared that I was leaving town. Now, she was right to be suspicious. I had continued to be purposefully vague. I went to a wedding in Scotland, I said, but she pushed on. These Nigerians and their destination weddings. So whose wedding was it? I know almost everybody in this town who can afford to pay for a wedding abroad. Or at least I know somebody who will know them. Now, you can tell by now that the relationship between my friend and I was at best still fluid. So it should not surprise you that after noticing how perfectly red the soles of her Louboutin shoes were, I suddenly found myself boldly stating that I had been at the most wonderful Nigerian gay wedding in a villa surrounded by beautiful gardens in Scotland. Bam. She rose from my sofa. "What rubbish," she said. "Why would you participate in such insanity? And by the way, where was your husband? I know you're half American, Ifeoma, but for God's sake." We locked horns. She threatened to leave. She ended the discussion with, "I am ending this discussion now because it's obvious it's the devil that is speaking through you." Now, at the time of this argument, my morally outraged and church-going friend was dating a very prominent married public figure and toying with the idea of seeing yet another popular Lagos Bigs boy, as we call them. You see, Nigeria's sweet Brent crude oil was then selling at a high $110 a barrel. So money flowed for those with the right kinds of connections. Yet there was still little or no infrastructural development in the country. Almost nothing for the poor or average citizen. And yet, the places of worship, churches and mosques were packed. Then, in 2014, President Jonathan Goodluck signed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act. It was smart strategy. His approval ratings rose, boosting his chances of a second term. The headlines read, "President signs ban on same-sex relations. Dozens arrested for being gay. U.S. threatens sanctions." Attention shifted from queries about a missing $20 billion in the country's oil revenue. Nigerians instead united in public conversation about a gay agenda, the rise of queer programming on U.S. television, conspiracies to remove prayer in the schools, the audacity of David Cameron's age suspension threat response, and Barack Obama's massive mistake in endorsing gays and gay marriage. Names like Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell were tossed in the mud with spit. Allow me to repeat that the new law includes the following provisions: 14 years imprisonment for gay marriage, 10 years for attending any gay gathering, and 10 years imprisonment for same-sex public amorous show of affection. That morning, my same friend texted me the news headlines and the following comment: "I thank God that there are still sane people in this world." Later that year, I attended Sunday service at a large, popular evangelical church in Lagos. I love lively choirs, and I enjoy theatrical sermons, even though it's still uncomfortable when I hear unfettered talk of money in the house of God. The congregation of 1,500 upper-middle-class Nigerians listened to the head preacher's wife give a fervent sermon. It was a condemnation of current trends, the usual concern for the corruption of our children by reality TV, film, video games, and social media. You know, the usual world spinning out of control, hell in a handbasket stuff. Anyway, she cautioned the congregation to be vigilant, to pray, and to minister to Muslims, Hindus, and Jews who need a turning to Christ. And most importantly, she warned us all to use our God-given sense. After all, she said, even a male dog has enough sense not to mount another male dog. Within the closing 3 minutes of this pastor's speech, she had managed to alienate 3 major world religions and insult members of the global LGBT community. The offering plate went round and the choir sang. Several months after the same-sex marriage prohibition bill was passed, I received an invitation from the German consulate to attend a screening of an independent Kenyan LGBT film, the first of its kind. The film had been banned in several countries. We were a motley crew of about 30 people in the audience, mostly young artists and a few journalists. The screening was to be followed by a group dialogue. However, when that portion of the event began, nothing more than a few vague comments and one foggy hint of a disgruntlement trickled from the group. The German cultural attaché took matters into his hands, walked to the front of the room, and made a speech. He reminded us that legally, the consulate compound was considered German territory. And as such, we had the full right to speak freely. I found the situation confusing and embarrassing. To be granted permission by a foreigner to speak freely in my own country. Chai. The matter was now critical. We had lost our minds. We had lost sight of our history. We had forgotten our culture of embrace. We had replaced it with something strange, something intolerant. No one would choose to be LGBT and Nigerian. No one. Let me share my thinking. As the West discovers new age philosophies of inclusiveness, holistic living, and natural medicines from the rest of the world, it embraces these wins and makes them its own. It documents and repackages these ancient traditions and philosophies and makes them available to its citizens. It progresses. I cannot help but think that as the West sheds its old skin, we Africans are all too eager to abandon our useful traditions and crawl into the discarded remains of rejected Western lifestyles. I had the following thought about the 1980s and 1990s in Nigeria, the thick of the military era. Dry seeds of the US evangelical movement blew across the world like tumbleweeds in a deserted Western town. And when the hopelessness of ruthless, corrupt leadership was at its worst, those seeds docked, split open, drank of the desperation, and sprung deep and upward into full bloom. This is not a bad thing. Now we just need enlightened spiritual leadership. The matter is more complicated than I imagined. I came to Radcliffe intending to write a poignant play that would speak to my community, like I have been able to do with Hear Word. I have since recognized that for safety reasons, this project will need to be a film. It's not easy. I had chosen to explore the question from the place I know best, from women, from what is possible from women in terms of social impact. Nigerian women, friends, sisters, mothers, grandmothers. I believed there was equity in showcasing to women the difficulties faced by their peers with LGBT children. However, my initial findings, have changed my thoughts. I have discovered that the vast majority of mothers who do not have LGBT children do not consider, know of, or empathize with those who do. And that those who have LGBT children are unable to come together for many reasons, including personal safety, the safety of their loved ones, and the stated law which criminalizes any gathering where gay persons are present, such as this one. While here at Radcliffe, I have been able to return to Nigeria twice and interview over 100 people in the streets, markets, and churches in Lagos. I have had secret group meetings with gay men and women, and I have spoken to parents, predominantly mothers of persons who are LGBT. And I've been humbled and stunned by their stories. I've felt despair, but I have already encountered fellow Nigerians who empathize and question the law. I have also met members of the Nigerian LGBT community with incredible hope and dreams and dignity, determined to find a way to live their most authentic selves. I'd like to show you a short film which illustrates some of my current work and findings.
Personally?
Not at all, not at all.
No, not at all.
Okay,
God forbid.
No, I don't know anyone. No, I don't. But I've heard. I'm just hearing it. I've never seen it.
No.
Huh? No, not at all.
I have a gay friend.
No.
Yes.
No, I don't. Well, not personally.
Not really, no, I don't.
I think I've seen some of them in University of Lagos.
I really see them in movies. I don't know if that's how they are in real life.
I don't know anybody in Nigeria, but I know it's happening.
We know this is common in the Western world and it's creeping in fast into our own society here. And I know that presently the government is trying to bring out a law to imprison anyone that is found to be homosexual.
It's not right in the African culture per se. Over there abroad, it's fine. But here, it's not in our culture to practice lesbianism or gayism or whatever. So the government is right with that. 14 years imprisonment, fine. But will that solve the issue? That's the problem.
I think the government has taken the right steps in the right direction.
It's a law that is very good, of which it will safeguard the citizenship of such acts.
Yeah, when I heard about it, I was very happy.
Good. Perfect.
So if you look at Sodom and Gomorrah, you have to go biblical. These are those things that ruin the society then. So if you continue in this, in our society, it will surely ruin us.
We have offense that is called sin, and we have the one that is so grievous that is called wickedness. So homosexuality and lesbianism, all these things are wickedness.
There are a lot of lesbians and gays in this world that we are right now. So definitely they cannot arrest everybody.
There are lots more issues to be tackled in this country than that silly bill.
I don't see any excess of my blood, going to lesbianism or gay.
I think if I should cut my own blood brother in that act, he knows what will happen.
This is family.
I'll kill her.
I'll kill him.
Yes, I'm going to hand over the child to the police myself. Yeah.
Okay. I will reject her first as a child. Secondly, I will go and report her myself. So they have to lock her up, or him. That's it.
I would talk to the child, try to talk the child out of it, do all the praying I can, and if it's not yielding, the law.
I don't need to report. I know how to take action on my own. I know how to take action. Be it a girl, I will quickly marry her off. And being a boy, I will marry him off as well. It can never happen in my house.
No, it can't happen, but if it happens, the parents will report. But it can happen for some people who didn't take proper care of their child. And if that won't happen, you have to go to your pastor, you go to the police, then you go to those people who can counsel.
Recently, one of my friends, when I was arguing, we were talking, and she does say like that one of her nieces, that from the time the girl was 5, that she doesn't like female colors, as in bright colors. If they put on a pink dress for her, she'll be crying until they remove it. And when the parents want now to even crown it, or they now took her abroad. So I know that she's going to be a lesbian. If the parents were sensible enough, they were to try to bring the girl out of it, not take her to a society and environment where she will be encouraged the more.
Because he had so many female friends, I was not bothered when he would like to settle down. Eventually, the impression I had was that being the first son, he wanted to achieve something great so he could help to take care of his siblings. He's a first son and he's living up to expectation.
He's
he's
stylish.
He's a fine boy too.
Yes.
Handsome.
He's handsome.
Dark and lovely. Anything that makes me happy, he would do. And the same thing I would do for him. That was why I was at his wedding. It was something he treasured, and that we were all there for him. I don't think he will ever forget it. You may not be gay, but you cannot predict if your children or grandchildren will not be gay. What do you do? Are you going to disown them? Why crucify them? They do not deprive you of your pleasures. They do not steal from you. So why do you label them as sinners? Why not drop it and let them go on with their lives? We are not all going to live forever. Whatever it is, I think we should show them love. The most important thing really is for your children to be happy. They've been born that way and you cannot change it.
So as you can see, there's a lot to unpack. I continue to be humbled by the trust that people have placed in me, and I'm cognizant of the need to get the story right and tell it in a way that makes sense to Nigerians. As a Radcliffe Fellow, I've been granted a safe space, a supportive space to begin this inquiry. I approach the subject with the full knowledge and respect for the risk this work poses to my current body of work and its growing audience and amazing supporters. And I believe that it is by being in this difficult and palpably dangerous space that we will also find love, tolerance, and compassion. The tolerance that I remember from my childhood in Nigeria. We are all familiar with what can happen when a leader uses fear and false promise to stir up the worst in the community. However, the resulting situation presents an opportunity to see clearly what lay latent and to embrace activism. This project has pushed me to begin to think big, to dream, to fantasize. I imagine a room filled with 30 of the most influential religious leaders in the world. I see that they are fully committed to not leaving the room until a viable solution to the world's problem of intolerance is resolved. In the front row are 5 of the most powerful Nigerian evangelical pastors with the largest congregations, some with as many as 1 million followers. I smile, for this is the quickest way forward. I have started writing, and I shall make my film. It shall include a heartfelt, honest story of a typical Nigerian family. It may include this dream. For the incredible opportunity to work on this project, I wish to thank the Radcliffe Institute, the Associate Dean, Judy Vichniak, the Dean, Liz Cohen, and the entire Radcliffe team with Rebecca and Sharon. I thank my nephew, Ikem Lee, and my research assistants, Michelle, Liam, and Amanda. I thank Leonie Marinkovic for accommodating my last-minute request to edit this video. I thank the incredible Hereward actresses, Elvina Ibru, Bimbo Akintola, Rita Edward, and Odenike, and our percussionists up there, Mecca and Blessing, all who illustrated a portion of my writing today. I seriously thank my sister Chinwe, who believes in almost everything I do. And I thank my wonderful and patient husband, Tani, and my 4 children, Tayo, Deji, Alia, and Tani Tokayode, all of whom are sacrificing my presence in their lives to give me this special time to create. I love you all, and I love my country, Nigeria. Thank you.